What's going on, guys? I'm Jody. This is Inspire Woodcraft. Today I want to talk to you guys about CA glue, which is this one that I have right here and some others I have scattered about. I wanted to show you guys a few ways that I use it very regularly in the shop when I'm working out here. And I also wanted to give this here box away to one of you guys. Now, not exactly sure how I'm going to set this up to do a giveaway, like how you would enter and all that, but I'll figure that out by the end of the video. If you can't stick around that long, do know that if you are interested in anything that we're talking about here, I have 10% off for you. If you go to STARBOND's website and enter Inspire 10 at checkout, you can save 10%. This is something that's been going on for a long time. I've had this available to you guys, and some of you have taken advantage of it. It's just not something that I talk about very often. It's also something that's going to be continuing to go on in the future. So if you don't take advantage of this right now, it's totally fine. If you get some, you want to get some again, some more at a later date, 10% off is right there. Just enter Inspire 10 at checkout. I also have it, at least some of the flavors, in my Amazon store. So if you go to the description of this video, you can find links for everything down there as well. But at least go to STARBOND's website, and that 10% off will be yours. Now, I also wanted to apologize and thank STARBOND all in the same go. So this is something that we talked about quite some time ago, and the reasons that the video never made it are irrelevant at this point. The bottom line is I dropped the ball on it, and this should have happened a long time ago. So I do apologize for that, and I also thank STARBOND for sending this out to begin with. But we're here, we're doing it, and we're gonna keep moving forward. This is STARBOND adhesive. This is CA glue. This is similar to what everybody calls super glue. Super glue is kind of like Q-tip. If you need a cotton swab on the end of a stick, you just call it a Q-tip. Q-tip, though, is a brand. So I may say super glue, I may say CA glue. It's all the same thing. I happen to use STARBOND. I've been using STARBOND's products for a very long time. This bottle right here is typical to what you are going to find on the shelf when you go to the hardware store. Sort of a medium body, you get a bottle, you get a nozzle, and a cap of some sort. You go to the hardware store, this is kind of what you're going to find. You're not going to find STARBONDs necessarily, but this similar type of product. What I like about STARBOND versus those products is the amount of the different options that we have and sort of the packaging. As far as performance-wise, I don't know that this is any better or any worse than anything else on the market. Recipe-wise, this might be identical to DAP or anybody else. So I can't really say one way or another why this one would be better or worse than any other ones. I've used a lot of them. I've used a lot of good ones. But I do know that this works. But what I like is that we not only have it in a medium, which is probably my go-to 80% of the time, but I actually have it in a thin and in a thick, both in clear. Why would you want one over the other versus a medium? A lot of different applications. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear that, but this is the thin. It's like thinner than water, it seems like. It can be a little tricky to use sometimes. This would work really well for locking in wood fibers, doing repairs and stuff like that. It also works really well. I like to use it as sort of a base coat when I'm going to be adding a thick or a medium to it. This gives that something to register against, if that makes sense. It's just very certain applications why you would want one over the other. The thick works really well when you're using it in conjunction with wood glue, which I'm going to show you guys here in just a second what that means. The thick, just like the other ones, is just a little bit thicker. This also works really well when you're doing what I call, welded joints on the inside of boxes and stuff. Again, I'll show you guys that here in just a second. The other thing is that it comes in two different colors, at least that I know of right this second. We have a medium brown, we have a medium thick black. These work really great for doing repairs and filling voids and cracks when we're working with raw materials. A lot of materials are a browner color, and so this brown is going to sort of hide those defects or blend it in or make them look like they're a part of something, even if they may not be. and the black is very similar. These also work really well for creating accents. So if I have, say, a piece of maple and I have a little detail on here that I want to make, I can fill that with the black, sand it back flush, and now I have a nice solid black detail that's contrasting this piece of maple. If that's something that you're interested in, a black CA glue would definitely do the job. A lot of times I use it for not an exact replacement, but smaller replacements for epoxy. Now I also like the packaging that it comes in. Now I don't mean this plastic box thing that this comes in. I mean what's actually in the package. Again, when you go to the store, pick up a bottle of super glue, CA glue, this is all you get other than whatever packaging it comes with. With this, you get the bottle of glue itself, you get 2 nozzles, 2 caps with those nozzles, and then you also get these tiny little add-on nozzles, and these work great for getting into tiny little details, any little crack or hole or crevice where you can't get the regular nozzle into, or maybe you're worried about flooding the surface. You don't want to flood, you want to get a very thin bead in there or something. These little nozzles work great. I don't use them all the time because I don't need to, but when I do need to, I absolutely love having these available. The real kicker to this whole operation and stuff that I use is actually the Accelerator. And I've been asked a few times, is Accelerator really necessary? It seems like it's almost trendy. I can see where someone might think that. I don't think that it's absolutely necessary. Any of these products will work great without it, but what Accelerator does is it speeds up the cure time of the glue. So normally, if I have these 2 pieces of wood and I want to just sandwich them together and layer them up, I would go and put a couple dots in here. I would sandwich these together and then I would have to hold them for, let's say, up to a minute, make sure that they actually cured. With the Accelerator, and those of you that have watched for a while know that I use this stuff all the time. I can put those same few drops on there. I can spray this side, the mating side, with the Accelerator, and the minute those 2 touch, it starts to bond. The directions on here say to hold it for 10 or 20 seconds. I can tell you from personal experience, it's way quicker than that. I mean, it's just, the stuff just instantly sticks together. And as soon as it sticks together, it's curing immediately. And so that really speeds up time on certain projects. Is there a difference between 10 or 20 seconds and 45 to 60 seconds? Yeah, technically, if it doesn't make a big deal to you, maybe you can get by without it. But I've found certain situations where having the Accelerator made what I was doing work. If I didn't have the Accelerator in certain situations, what I was trying to pull off wouldn't work. So that leads me into what I really use this for. So I got 3 main things here. The first thing is going to be what I call sort of like welding. And that is where we would take, say, this piece, for example, and I would actually run it on the outside of the material and create like a weld, right? So when you normally have metal in welding, I'm going to weld these 2 pieces together. I'm going to run my bead along this edge, and that's going to give me support one way or another. If I run it on both sides, this piece is absolutely locked in there and you're not getting it apart. That's similar to how I do my welding sort of trick with the super glue, or the CA glue. So with this jig right here, this is a cork cutting jig. I drop a cork in here, I run it through the bandsaw, it splits it in half for me. These pieces are too small and intricate to really use wood glue and clamps or nails or something like that. So I dabbed some CA glue on this piece, the main part of the body, and stuck it to this sled. Then I ran around all the outside here. I put a dab here, just ran a bead, and I took the accelerant and cured that instantly. And I turned it, I did the same thing here, cured it instantly. I just went all the way around, and now this thing is super solid. You'd have to really rip it apart. Same with this. This is a catch tray that I made for the back of my bandsaw table, and this just lives, it magnets to the back of the table, and it's for the tiny little parts that I cut off and I want to get them off the table. I don't want to sweep them onto the floor. I sweep them off into this, and when it's full, I dump it. This is tempered hardboard. It's 1/8 inch thick. Again, not a lot of gluing surface. It's sort of one of those projects where it's, you know, to find a fastener, clamps and stuff for it is a little bit of a pain in the butt. Again, I use the CA glue. I tacked all these pieces in place with the glue, then same thing. I ran a bead here, I sprayed it to instantly cure it, and I did that in the corners as well. So you just run a bead here, and spray it, and it'll instantly bond it. That's where that accelerator really comes into play. Another thing that I like to do is use CA glue in conjunction with wood glue. Again, those of you guys who've been watching for a while have seen me do this before. Traditionally, if I wanted to glue these two pieces together, I would need to run glue along an edge, and then I would need to set it on there where it needs to be. I'd either have to nail it or screw or use clamps somehow. I gotta wait for it to dry if I'm using clamps. Sometimes delicate pieces aren't really set up to use hardware to fasten things together to act as a clamp. What I can do is I can leave a little gap here. I can run a partial bead of wood glue. I can leave another gap here, run another partial piece, and leave a gap at the end. And then I would come back through with CA glue, a dot, a dot, and a dot where there wasn't wood glue. Spray this side with the accelerant, flip it over, get it right in place, and lock it down. Hold it for a few seconds longer than I normally would, and that's because the thickness of the wood glue may be a little thick for this stuff to bond right away. But what it's going to do is it's going to act as a clamp. Now this piece is temporarily clamped to this, waiting for the wood glue to dry, and now I can take this piece and use it where I need to use it, as opposed to having to wait, deal with the clamps and the glue mess and everything else. So that is one thing I use all the time. I absolutely love it. In this situation, the thick CA glue may be a better option. And the reason is because, for one, a medium and definitely a thin is just going to soak into the pores. It's not going to have a layer to it. If you use the thick, it's going to have a little bit of a buildup, and it's going to have match the wood glue thickness just a little bit better, which means as soon as that glob of glue touches the accelerant, it's actually going to be able to stick, where the medium, and I wouldn't even mess with the thin at this point, but it may not be thick enough to reach the accelerant and actually stick the wood together. So it's just one thing to think of. Now, last thing that I will say is using this stuff for filling voids and cracks and holes and whatnot. And what I have here is an experiment that I did a little while back. I used clear CA glue with different things that I added in there for accents, say like an inlay. I have some aluminum shavings, I have some coffee grounds, some sawdust, and some orange and then some teal mica powder. And mica powder is really interesting because if you use enough of it, you get a nice little paste going on. You can then weasel that into little cracks and crevices and create some really cool accents. I think I've seen people use this similar setup with those like little bits of shells and stuff like that for making accents and things, which is really, really cool. If you're not filling an actual hole, say it's a knot, and you're worried about the knot sort of falling apart over time, one trick that we like to do is we like to use 5-minute epoxy to fill that in and lock all those pieces together. Super glue can do the exact same thing. The amount that you're going to need, of course, is kind of based on your job. So if you have a little bit bigger project, I would definitely go the epoxy route. When you put a lot of this stuff out into the air, the smell can be a little overwhelming. So I would save the super glue stuff for smaller little things. If you had a much bigger project, definitely reach for the epoxy. But it does work, is my point. So if you have voids, I've had many times where I've had a nice, really nice piece, I've got it all ready for my project, and I happen to notice there's a little split down here. I'll get my knife in there and sort of pull up on that split, then I'll put the glue in there, and then I'll bring the split back down and I'll tape it closed. The tape acts as a clamp while this dries, because at this point I can't get the accelerator in there. That works really well for repairing the ends of lumber that might have been cracked. So really good stuff. I use, like I said, those tricks all the time, and I use STARBOND stuff all the time. It's the only thing that's been in my shop now for the last couple of years, I think. This box is going to be mailed out to one of you guys. I am going to keep it with just US addresses at this point. I know I feel bad, especially for you guys up north, because you guys seem to always get shorted on these kind of things. But for this time, at least, I want to keep it here in the US. Maybe we'll do another one where we can include some other people. I'm going to say just comment. Just leave a comment on this video. Tell me about how much you think I hate Canada because I'm not shipping this up there. But in all honesty, leave a comment and that'll be your submission. If you can, and you have experience with using these types of things, leave a comment that says how you use these things. What do you use CA glue for in your shop? And even if it's not in woodworking, that way, the people that are going down into the comments looking for other people talking crap can read some other stuff and be educated a little bit more. It's always good to share things that we know with other people. It's kind of what this is all about. Anyways, that wraps it up for me. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, we'll see you guys in the next one.